I was wearing
Anybody doing something
pajamas
fun for Hanukkah this Thursday?
Live on YouTube. Okay, that's
Okay, we are live, so we will
Right.
start. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
So this Amish couple goes to the big city for the first time in their life, and they get to a shopping mall. And they're told this is an interesting place. So they come into the shopping mall and they look around, and the father and son are standing in front of what looks like this big room with these doors that open and close. And they watch as an older woman walks over to the doors with her cane, and she pushes a button and the doors open, and this older woman with her cane slowly walks inside this room and the doors shut. And a minute later, the doors open again, and a young, vibrant woman dances out of the doors, and the father and son are standing there in complete shock. And the son says, "Dad, what is that?" And the dad says, "Son, I have no idea, but go get your mom." So sometimes in life, when we don't understand the context, we have no idea what's going on. But when we just understand a little bit deeper and we see what's really happening and we understand how things are really functioning, then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand what's happening here. And we call that a paradigm shift, where we completely transform the way that we look at the world around us and the way that we see everybody and everything in the world around us. And we've spent a lot of time talking about our neshama, our soul, and the journey that it takes and the things that it has the ability to accomplish and its purpose and its mission and how incredible that is. But I think what we all really need is a paradigm shift. We just need something that will give us the tools, the ability to look at the world around us and say, hey, it isn't what I see all the time. It's actually something completely different. It's not a box where people walk in and out of and get transformed. It's an elevator. So when we look at the world around us, we're constantly like, oh, it's a hard place. It's a difficult place. It's a challenging place. The Rebbe gave us a gift. The gift to be able to open up our eyes to see a new reality. And we spoke about the reality that we're constantly trying to create and how we all have the ability to create that reality. But we didn't discuss what we can do right now and what we can see before, the world becomes a more beautiful place. What can we see right now in the world around us that will make us see what it truly is and not just a mess? So, to help us understand that, I'm going to start with a really cute cartoon, which was made as a cartoon that kids love to watch, but it's actually a deep idea in Kabbalah. And these cartoons are called Kabbalah Tunes, and they were actually made by my father, and there's tons and tons of them. You can look for Kabbalah Tunes on Chabad.org. And each one of them has a really deep, mystical insight. Oh, Bonnie also has a Hanukkah sweater. Is it? Oh, no. Yeah, it is. Has really deep mystical insight. But sometimes when you see something in a simplistic cartoon, it's much easier to swallow. So I'm going to show you this cartoon, and I love it. It's one of my favorite Kabbalah tunes ever. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll watch this together, and then we're going to discuss, before I even give you any deeper ideas about it, just discuss what you thought about this. Here we go. It's called Sifting Gold.
It's unbelievable how many things I trained Fievel to do. Here we are at an abandoned gold mine in the Yukon. The shaft is dark, muddy, and yucky. But Fievel uses his MRI vision and turbo drilling power to break through the gunk and come up with, no, Fievel, that's not gold. It's just more mud. Well, Fievel's just like the rest of us. We're all sent down here into this messy world full of yucky stuff and often very dark. But there's gold down here. There's got to be. Otherwise, why would we be sent here? So after a full lifetime in the gold mine, we return above and bring back what we found. Some of us might just bring back reports about all the mud. Personally, I'd rather report on nuggets of gold that I found.
All right. What do you think about that?
Mm.
Go ahead, Susan.
I think that it's about seeing what's really in front of you instead of seeing what being literal. Okay, that it's not about the material things you amass; it's about the loving things you gather and how much you give back in that love, and how that one little person multiplied into like 7 or 8 people, and that was the real gold.
That's beautiful. That's great. Looking a little deeper. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say also, is actually looking a little bit deeper when he got the rocks, like, yeah, inside the coal, there is gold. Like I said, you have to look for it, but the little pieces, but yeah, obviously family is more important. But the idea that there's something under the surface too of a person when you meet them, don't necessarily think you know everything about this person too when you meet them, because it might be something deep underneath.
So you're saying not just in the world around us, but also in the people that we meet.
Right.
There's
There might be
something deeper
something
that's there.
Right. There's something
That's
underneath
beautiful.
it besides just what we see.
Yeah,
That's
the inside
beautiful.
of the person is more important than the outside. And sometimes the light is showing us sometimes the inside that it's more goldy or more shiny than the outside or what around us. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah. Beautiful. So years back, you know, when the Rebbe first agreed to take on the position of, you know, directing Chabad, which is something he initially did not want to do at all. He didn't think that he was qualified for the position. The Rebbe sat there and gave us a pep talk. And it was a pep talk that we all badly needed, because most of the Hasidim, most of the Jewish people sitting there in the audience and listening to the Rebbe speak for the first time were badly bruised and beaten. They were survivors. They had just escaped the terrors of the Holocaust, and they had come to the shores of America. And if it wasn't them, then it was their family. You know, there were a lot of American Jews. My husband's grandfather was actually one of the first Chabad Hasidim in America. They were here for a number of generations, even before the Rebbe got here. But everybody was affected by what had just happened to the Jewish people. And the perspective really was a very troubled one, a dark one. You know, the world is a mess. The world is dark and difficult and challenging. And what do we even see in this world? What does God see in this world? Why is this all here to begin with? That was the real perspective. And the Rebbe knew that we needed to get out of that, and fast. So the Rebbe, the first thing that the Rebbe spoke about, and this was on the 10th day of Shvat, and the Rebbe started with this incredible deep idea quoting the words of King Solomon, where King Solomon says, Basi lagani achoti kala. I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. And King Solomon is comparing God's relationship with the Jewish people to the relationship between a bride and a
You froze.
is coming to his beautiful garden, saying that God is coming to this beautiful garden. God is coming to this world, and that was at the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Why is this world referred to as a garden? And the Rebbe speaks about this idea at length, that this world is truly a beautiful garden. And while we may not see that, that's what it truly is. And the Rebbe's the first thing that the Rebbe wanted to accomplish was to give us this paradigm shift of being able to see the world as a beautiful, gorgeous garden. So I'm going to read to you the words that the Rebbe spoke at the beginning. They were in Yiddish, and they were very honest to the crowd that was sitting there. And then you'll tell me how you could answer this question that the Rebbe poses to all of the Hasidim sitting there. He says, when we look with physical eyes and we only see the physical in the world around us, we naturally wonder, what is happening with this world? The situation is deteriorating from one generation to the next, even from 1 year to the next. Goodness does not prevail. Conditions in spirituality and in holiness are not improving. This is especially when it comes to our Jewish concerns. Our nation was always a small nation amongst the rest of the world, and that's definitely the case today. So, if we have such thoughts, we could easily conclude that this world is a jungle that's dominated by vicious animals, and it definitely does not look like a beautiful garden that has beautiful fruits inside of it. These kind of thoughts could lead us to feel despair and depression. How can we even hope to change the world? How can we hope to affect the world? It appears that the world is really, truly a jungle. Let's stop right there. This is the question that the Rebbe poses. Do you relate to this question today as well? Do you relate to that sentiment? Looking at the world around you and perceiving it as a jungle. Do you relate to that in your life today as well? Or is everything just totally normal?
Some things that go
A
on,
jungle.
definitely not
A
there.
jungle, says Elisa.
2020 is a jungle.
2020 is a jungle. So this is definitely pertains to 2020. You're muted.
Well, I was
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk
Go,
over
Bonnie.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it depends in what area you're looking. Like parts of the world are a jungle and parts are not. So I think it just depends in the world where you're looking. I mean, it's been a really hard year, but I keep trying to say, there are things to be positive about and patient about. Like when I hear everyone talking about the vaccine and, oh, but this might happen and not everyone has the right freezers. I'm like, but oh my God, look what they did in a year. We're going to have a vaccine. And yeah, not everyone's going to be able to administer it yet. But I mean, this is a good positive thing. Everyone thought it'll take years. It'll take 5 years to get a vaccine. And
Right.
So not everything's a jungle. I think we're making it's a mess right now, of course, the whole world. But I think some things we make a jungle when they're really not. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Definitely.
there are good things that we're putting a bad spin on. I'm like, there's enough jungle and bad now. Can we not put a bad spin on good
Right.
things?
Right.
Like, let's go out of our way to point out the negatives,
Right.
I'm like, they're not negatives, they're facts. It's biological, a vaccine. It's
Right.
going to take time to handle it.
100%. So some people are very good at digging up the dirt. And those people are very good at pointing out how this world really is a jungle. And And you really could gain that perspective if you want to. Like, it's not difficult to come to that conclusion. And you know what? You're so right, especially now during COVID. I just see the differences in perspective all the time. I have people who will like drop by Chabad for Shabbat to go, and they'll say, I'm only coming if there's no politics being discussed. And I'm like, when's the last time you heard politics discussed at Chabad? We don't do that here. And in a sense, it's like they can breathe finally. You know, some people are just looking for somewhere to go. And it's just, let's just be normal. Let's just focus on the good stuff that's there rather than constantly digging up all the dirt. And then you have conversations with some people and all they can talk about is dirt. And I'm like, okay, we get the point. We know. Let's look for the beauty that's here. So you're totally right. It all depends on your perspective. But I definitely think that, the Rebbe was speaking to a generation of people who were really broken, but I do believe that this message still applies at all times because everybody needs this message. The world is not perfect. The world is not perfect until we get to that fourth stage that we talked about last week, till we get to the time of Mashiach. We're still going to constantly have to revamp our perspective, and we need these tools.
So I have to share this with, I think most everyone here is a parent. I used to tell my kids, when they get frustrated that something wasn't the way they wanted, or I used to tell them, you try your hardest. That doesn't mean you have to have perfection. That perfection is boring, because then what is there? If it's perfect, there's, nothing to do with it. So I used to say perfection is boring. I used to tell them that when they'd get frustrated.
Definitely. Especially a perfect report card is boring. Okay. So going back to that idea, the Rebbe pauses and reminds us of what King Solomon told us. King Solomon told us that God refers to this world as a garden, and not just as a garden. It's not like, Atlanta Botanical Gardens. It's my garden. It's my special place. Do you have a special place that you like to go to? And if you can't go there, then you go there in your mind sometimes?
Beach,
The beach?
Water.
Mm-hmm.
just hearing the waves crash and the ocean and that whole peaceful feeling. I love it.
That's your happy place.
Mhm.
Aviva, is yours in Israel?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm dreaming on on Mount Carmel.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you can't go there, you just have to close your eyes
Yeah.
and mentally put yourself.
No, I'm calling my sister and she's showing me the views.
Oh, so nice. So all of us have that place, or we should have that place. That's our special place. And God has a place that's God's special place. And God refers to this world as his garden. That's the first thing that we need to remember. We need to wake up in the morning and say, good morning, God's garden. I woke up in a beautiful garden that belongs to the creator of all of it. And it's amazing. That needs to be what we see. So the Rebbe pauses and reminds us that this world is God's garden. And then the Rebbe tells us, it's not just a nice field. A field gives us grain. So a field is very nice and very beautiful, and you grow a lot of crops, but it's not a garden. A garden has beautiful trees that are filled with plump, juicy fruits, and that one can take pleasure from walking around in a garden. Sometimes people have beautiful gardens that are just there for them to relax, to walk around, to hear the little waterfalls, to walk among the trees And that's very pleasant and relaxing. So when we remind ourselves that this world is a garden, we say, no, it's not just a nice little field, it's a garden. And what does that mean? It means that there are beautiful fruits here to find. That God didn't just give us this blank field and say, okay, now you got to go out there and, work with it and make it into something. It's already beautiful. There's already big, juicy fruits ready for us here to pick, for us to find. We just have to dig deeper and find those things. So I want to do a little exercise for a second. You could write this down for yourself if you want. But think to yourself, we just stated what the Rebbe tells us is a fact. That the world is not a jungle, but it's a beautiful garden. I am sure that each of us have had life experiences that challenge that notion. If you can write down 3 experiences that you've had in your life that would seem to point to the very opposite, that would seem to point to a world that is not a beautiful garden, but a world that is really much more of a mess. So maybe you write down those 3 experiences that you've had, because we can only really answer our question if we have a very, very good question. So if you think of 3 challenging situations in your life, not even in your personal life, and things that you've seen in the world around you, that challenge the notion that this world is truly God's garden, then we'll be able to try to find the reverse. So go ahead for a second. Okay. So maybe some of you have 3 ideas. If anybody wants to share, you're welcome to.
Over here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of them is that my husband is still alive. He had major accidents with a huge truck. And the funny thing was it pushed him into a dump truck, and that he's still kicking,
Wow.
still there. So that's amazing that he's there, that he's still here with us, and he's going through stuff, but he's still here, and he still jokes, and he still kids around, and he still watches TV, etc. And the other one is that
Wait, Eileen, when did this happen?
That's what I was saying. When did that happen?
Around 10, 11, 12 years ago. We
Oh,
don't.
wow. Wow. Okay.
And the other thing is that I find amazing personally is that years ago, and I'm an old timer. I've been here a long time in East Cobb. And I remember my children, before they went to Epstein Jewish Day School, they went on a trip through a local school, and they saw, maybe I was with them, I guess, they saw the Ku Klux Klan. Oh my God, it destroyed me. And it didn't destroy me. I mean, it upset me tremendously. And then so many years later, could you ever believe that Chabad would come to East Cobb? That blew me away, that such an organization would come to my neck of the woods as a Southerner that I might be, and come here, and I make a comparison to what was then and what is now. And that is amazing to me. And the other one is with this, COVID or Chinese virus, that my daughter was let go of her job, and the upside of it, she's going to get a better job. Boom, boom.
Amazing, Eileen. But you already found the good. You leave no work for the rest of us. You've pointed out
Sure.
3 things that really looked very challenging in this world. And then you already dug and found the beauty in all of them, which is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
You're on mute.
Mute.
I was having trouble getting off mute. Anyway, so you all, most of you probably don't know that I have a sister who's disabled, and she's been disabled since birth. And this was the only thing I could think of when you brought up 3 things. I didn't have 3 things. However, it kind of extended that way. So it's kind of like why that had to happen. She's been in a wheelchair her whole life. And it affected our whole family. And you just wonder, why did God let that happen? It was a birth, it was something that happened at birth. And I don't know, it definitely affected our whole lives, my parents' life, my life. It continues because my parents are gone, but I still take care of her from a distance, but I have caretakers for her and everything. So, you know, in a perfect world, I say, why did that have to happen? So I guess that's what I thought of.
Sure. That's definitely very challenging to look at somebody who's living their life and in a very, very challenging way.
Right.
Yeah, and that doesn't look all peaches and roses. Doesn't
Right.
look all beautiful.
Exactly.
100%. 100%. So we can really look at everything in the world around us. I mean, I think you could classify, you know, if you talk about the clan that Eileen, your daughter, had to see, and you talk about, you know, there are a lot of people in this world, and many of them are filled with ego and self-centeredness, and it's just all about them. And worse, there's really terrible things that people on this planet do. And there's no way to justify those things that we're doing and that they're doing and think the better of them for what they've done. So in one sense, it really seems like the world is filled with egotistical, immoral people. There are so many of them. And B, there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of tragedy. And people get hurt, and people are born with challenges, and people get sick, and people die. So just those two already puts you in a place of, wow, you know, why is the world filled with all this dirt? It's dirt that seemingly comes from people, and it's dirt that seemingly comes from above, from God. What is all this? So we can really divide all our personal struggles into those 2 categories, usually. Now the Rebbe brings us back to the analogy of a garden. In Kabbalah, we talk about fruit. Fruit, there are many different types of fruits, but all fruit has what we call klipa. It has a peel, a shell. Some fruits have a very hard shell, like what? What kind of fruit has a hard shell?
Coconut?
Uh-huh, very good. A very hard shell to crack open. Okay, so there are coconuts, and then there are melons, and you know, then there are fruits that are not such challenging shells to open, but they need to be open nonetheless. My 2-year-old daughter has, you know, we're always looking for something that will keep her busy for longer than 10 seconds, so she won't go destroying everybody else's projects. And she loves to peel things. She can peel clementines. So it used to be, like, she's been peeling clementines for like a year now. It used to be that if you wanted to find where is Shayna, you just follow the trail of clementine peels, because she would peel and drop, and like she would just walk around the house peeling and drop. Now she knows she has to stand next to the garbage can and peel it. I'm looking for other things that she can peel, but we've only thought of hard-boiled eggs and clementines. But peels are a very fascinating concept. My grandmother of blessed memory, she would never waste the peels of an orange or a lemon or anything like that. She would take all the peels and dry them out by her windowsill, and then blend them up and make incredible rind powder that she would put into her cakes. I don't have that kind of patience. My grandmother was a powerful Sephardi woman. Yes, Ashley.
I'm just going to say she could peel Brussels sprouts.
She could peel.
That's one
Brussels
leaf.
sprouts.
One
She'll
leaf.
never end. She'll just keep going.
Yeah.
The same with onions. The kids have peeled onions too, and they're like, "Mommy, there's so much. You can never stop peeling." I'm like, "Great, keep going."
Same with garlic, because that's another good one to
Oh,
have.
that's another good one. Garlic is a good one, but you can't eat them afterwards. So.
No.
But not touching your eyes.
Exactly. That's the problem with those.
Yeah.
So fruits have shells, fruits have peels to them. But from experience, when you're a child, somebody hands you a banana, you bite into the banana. And I remember like every kid does this. They bite into the banana and ooh, like it tastes disgusting, the peel of the banana. And then the kid's like, "I don't want this." And you're like, "Sweetheart, we have to take off the peel, and there's a really yummy banana inside, and you can even use the peel to hold it, like a whole trick. You can hold this peel." So for many of us, we see these fruits in the world around us, but they all have an exterior husk. They all have a peel on them. Sometimes they have a lighter peel, like an apple, that you can actually consume. And some of them have a much more coarse husk. And if you're going to bite into them just like that, oh, it's terrible. But we have to, in the same way that we teach our children to peel bananas and peel oranges, we have to teach ourselves to peel back the shell that's on top of everything in life. Because if we do, there's always fruit underneath. Now you're going to come and say to me, "Well, what about some things that I am incapable of peeling back that shell," right? Like a disabled sibling. It's very, very hard to peel back the shell and say, "Oh yeah, there's something good in this." And sometimes it's not our job. And it's not right for us to try to peel back the shell and find the fruit underneath. There are some things in this world that are covered with the husk of a coconut, sometimes even stronger than that. And it's impossible for a human being with their bare hands to peel that back and find the good inside. And for those things, we simply have to look at them and say, "I know that this looks, brown and fuzzy and hard and dangerous, but I know that really inside there's beautiful coconut fruit." We have to look at things in this world that truly look like they're terrible. It's impossible for us to peel back the husk and say, "It looks terrible. It really, truly does. I need God to come and show me how this truly could be good." And for that, we can't do that now. That is not something that we can accomplish in our world, in the present reality that we live in. That's for the time of Mashiach. For our time right now, we work on the fruits that we can peel. And we work on the situations that we can find the good inside of them. Like Eileen found 3 situations, but also they took time for you to see the positive in those 3 situations. Over time, you gradually began to see the goodness that was in all of them. It takes time. So when the Rebbe is telling us that the world is a garden, the Rebbe is saying it's not a field. It's a garden with fruit. And fruit comes with husks, with shells, with peels. But we have to know that if we live in a beautiful garden, the ugly things that we see, they're really not so ugly. They really are very beautiful fruit. And the message to us is to remind ourselves that we inhabit a wonderful world. But the darkness in this world will constantly try to hide over that, to mask the goodness and the beauty, hoping that then we will lose all hope. and we won't try to find the beauty in this world. But in truth, the world is a beautiful garden. You know, all of us have inside of us two parts to our soul. And I'm pretty sure we've talked about this idea before. We have a godly soul, piece of God inside of us, and then we have an animal soul. The animal soul is not bad, it's not terrible. It just wants to do the things that it wants to do. And it's lazy, or it's angry, or it's not interested in doing all the holy things that we intend to accomplish and the good things we intend to accomplish. And this animal soul has one amazing tool. The most incredible tool that it can use is indifference. The animal soul comes to you and it makes you cold. And it makes you say, ugh, look at this world. What a mess. Never going to be able to do anything with this stuff. It'll come to you in the morning when you really want to open up your Siddur and say a prayer and talk to God and say, oh, seriously, you're really going to do that? You really think you're going to make a difference, right? It'll come to you when you're about to eat one bite of kosher and say, seriously, you haven't eaten kosher the entire week. You're going to eat kosher now? Who do you think you are? This is ridiculous. The animal soul is amazing at making you feel indifferent to the goodness that you can accomplish. You know that amazing story about the little boy standing on the seashore, throwing into the sea all the starfish, and an older gentleman walks over and says, my child, what are you doing? There are thousands upon thousands of starfish on the shore. You're never going to be able to save all of them. Kid looks up, shrugs, picks up another starfish, throws it back into the ocean, says, made a difference to that one. And keeps going. So our animal inside of us, our animal soul, is like that old jaded gentleman. There's nothing wrong with him. He's just had too much of life. And the young child is our godly soul who really truly believes that this world is beautiful, that this world is a beautiful garden and that there's so much to do. So if you ever start feeling, oh, I'm never going to be able to do anything. Look how much of a mess there is in this world. Me, I'm going to make a difference. Just me in my life being positive and finding the good is actually going to change this world. Forget about it. I may as well just drink my cocktail and watch more TV, right? What am I actually going to accomplish in this world? How am I actually going to make any difference? If that thought comes into your head, or even a slight thought of indifference, of just being cold, never going to accomplish anything, that's the animal inside of you. Just trying to cool you down. Just trying to cool you down. And, take away your passion for accomplishing anything good. Because the animal knows that as soon as you lose your passion for accomplishing anything good in this world, you could even become sad. You could even become depressed. And that is the greatest tool for never wanting to do any mitzvah, any kindness, or anything good out there. So sadness and depression is automatically coming from the negative side, coming from the animal inside of us. And you know what you can do when those thoughts appear in your head? You say, oh, those are very valid ideas, very valid thoughts. Come to it, a little intellectually, because your godly soul is in your mind. And say, I really appreciate those thoughts, and I'm so happy that you're bringing them to me. Unfortunately, I'm very busy today. I have a lot on my schedule. And these thoughts were not scheduled for right now. I've got this meeting and that meeting and this to accomplish and that to accomplish. But you know what, Mr. Animal Soul, I would love to have this conversation with you. And I do think it's a very important conversation to have. So I'll be saying the Shema tonight at about 10 p.m. And if you would like to join me then, that's a great time for us to have this conversation, for us to have this discussion and talk about, all the negative things that are out there and, how it's really challenging. And I'm very happy to have that conversation. So just come back then. 99% of the time, that animal soul never shows up. Ashla mazel, he forgets his meeting. So if you schedule a meeting time with that animal inside of you, they usually forget. It doesn't usually work out. And if it does work out, okay, so you have that conversation at that specific time, and then it's done. Then it's over with. But if thoughts pop up in your mind when you're in the middle of your day, when you're in the middle of doing things, when you're in the middle of accomplishing things, that's not the appropriate time, okay? It's like when you're teaching little kids and every other second they're popping up with, well, what would happen if I'm like, okay, let's learn this. And then we'll talk about all the possible scenarios that could possibly go wrong. Let's now focus. So your animal is like, just trying to get you off track. So set up a meeting, tell the animal soul to come back later, and then you'll have those conversations. So the garden is a good place. It's a beautiful place. And the animal soul inside of us is constantly trying to show us that there's something negative in this world. Constantly point out the bad that's here in our world. And it's annoying. It's really, really annoying. But I want you to tell me how the animal soul could actually also be like a piece of fruit, could actually also be a positive influence on your life. What do you think?
Sometimes from the negative, we are learning the positives in our lives. And if we will have the challenges with the negative, we can think about it and we can understand that we have to go to the positive. I can try to give an example, like you mentioned yesterday, before the kosher. Yeah, if you're going to the supermarket and you're looking only for Halav Israel milk and you don't have, so what to do? To buy the OUD or to wait for a few days for the Halav Israel? So here you have a struggling like between the, you can buy whatever you have now or to wait. The supermarket will get it and you'll buy it when they are getting it. So this is the example I got it in my mind now.
Okay, great. So sometimes from seeing the negative, we're pushed more to look at the positive. That the idea?
Yeah.
So if you didn't have any adversity in your life, if you didn't have any struggle, how often would you be pushed to do something that's truly good? Right?
Yeah.
Eileen, if you weren't really, really bothered by seeing the clan in your neighborhood, would you have been so happy when Chabad moved in? Right?
True.
Maybe not.
True.
Sometimes if we don't see something, if we don't experience something that's truly negative, then the positive is like, yeah, whatever,
True.
You have to taste a bad flavor of ice cream to really appreciate the good ones. So sometimes seeing the negative and being in a negative situation makes us really, really appreciate the positive. Sometimes seeing a person who's really sick and really struggling allows us to appreciate the fact that we can be healthy. The fact that we have a body that functions beautifully and works. If we choose to just see the negative, that's our choice. But we have the ability to peel back the fruit and learn from everything we see in this world. The Baal Shem Tov taught us that anything that we see in our life is meant to be a lesson for us. If you saw something, it's because you were meant to see it. Either you were meant to change it or you were meant to learn a lesson from it. But nothing that you see in your life is by chance. There's always something that you are meant to do or learn from whatever you see. So if you're seeing something that's negative, it's because there's something positive that you need to accomplish, that you need to learn or need to accomplish from that thing. I'm going to end with, well, actually, let me show you this beautiful image.
Can I share something with you, Shifra, before? Something short. I got yesterday something about the sufgania. Sufgania is the in Hebrew donuts, and the letters are sof and gan, garden. Yud hey is from God. The Adam and Chava got it in Gan Eden, and the outside it's the sufgania, and we have to be very careful to eat all the sufgania without getting dirt, and to arrive to the gem in this inside the sufgania. Something that I got yesterday. I wanted to share.
That's so cute.
Thank you.
The end is the garden of Hashem. So when you're eating your donuts on Hanukkah, you have to remind yourself that in truth, at the end of the day, it's all really God's garden. Oh, I love that. I'm going to eat so many donuts this year.
We didn't get it.
Yeah, Bonnie?
So I did want to say, like, when we were talking about negative and positives and the thoughts and the feelings and how much time to spend on it. I mean, I think we all agree that for sure, if bad things didn't happen, we wouldn't really appreciate the good and the beautiful and the kind and the good things and the beauty around us. Having said that, I think, though, it's not like you had said, okay, these are true things, and yes, they deserve attention, but let's show up later to meet for them. Sometimes, negative things, if you sometimes try so hard to say, okay, but we're not going to focus on that, they eat at you on the inside, even if you don't. So without going into detail, some of you know my history, some don't, and it isn't just Philip, it's, growing up sick father. It's a whole host of things. We all have our problems that we put in the bag, right? But advice someone gave me that I found so helpful is in acknowledging these things, like instead of having it at the back of your mind, eating at you all day long, that meeting you talked about, Shifra, it's important actually to show up for it. Even if you say, okay, for 10 minutes every day, that's going to be my time to dwell and figure out how I'm going to cope and then let go of the negative bad things. It just seems like it was a much healthier way for me, instead of always feeling like in front of everyone I had to constantly hold things back. Sometimes these negative bad things, like you're overwhelmed, like Elisa with her sister, like even though it's been for years in status quo, there are certain days, especially like I remember, during the hurricanes and knowing that she had to be moved, and there are certain times where it's just overwhelmingly awful. And if you give yourself that 10 minutes to just, whether you're calling it a pity party or whether you're saying it's a meeting with yourself to figure out how best to get past it so it doesn't ruin all the good things, I think it's important for
100%.
Shlemiel to show up, I guess is what I'm saying.
100%. I think I have to make a differentiation here. What I'm talking about when I say that these thoughts just pop up in your head, these are random negative thoughts that are just almost a waste of time. If someone actually has a real challenge or a real struggle, we should never just dismiss that and push it aside. If someone has a real challenge or struggle in life, that has to be worked with. That has to be dealt with. You can't just push it aside because it won't go away. And our job is to work with it in a way that we can, try to find the positive and try to find the good, but you can't, push that off and hope that it won't come back, because it won't. What we're talking about, the thoughts of the animal soul are just random ideas that just randomly pop into your head that are negative thoughts. That's not healthy. You can't constantly be having those thoughts. And you also can't be burdened with something. The Talmud tells us that daiga b'leiv ish yisichana, that if you have a worry, you should speak it over with a good friend. Not a friend who's a negative person, but a friend who's a positive person. I'm gonna, so definitely don't push aside those things. They 100%. You have to actually do something about that.
I don't want it to be like a poison going into our soul.
Right. So you just have to learn to not let it take over your whole life and overwhelm you, whatever that challenge is. But I found, for me, everyone's different, giving myself that, this particular time, like you schedule a meeting with yourself and feel what you have to feel,
100%.
but don't let it cloud everything else. You know, what Saturday Night Live, remember Debbie Downer, remember the Downer family, everything was bad and a downer. You don't want that to happen to your life.
Be down.
100%. Okay, I'm going to end with one beautiful image and story. So to sum up everything we just said, and I can share this with you. This is a picture of the Rebbe walking in a garden. And this is really the mind shift that the Rebbe gave us. This world is God's most precious garden, and we are its gardeners. The most powerful part of that now is that we are the gardeners. And that means that we are the ones who have to make sure that this garden, its true beauty is really seen. Because if you just leave it to grow wild, it could look like a jungle. But it's up to you and I to really, truly focus and find the beautiful things in it. And I want to end with a really beautiful story, but a very powerful man who will be very missed. Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who recently passed, was an incredible world leader and really a leader who was actually able to, in some way, unite the Jewish people. When he was still young in university, he wanted to meet with all the different Jewish leaders in America. And he set up appointments with everyone. But to meet with the Rebbe was extremely difficult because you couldn't just get a meeting. So he worked, and finally he got a call that the Rebbe would see him the next day. He was hours and hours and hours away by train. He immediately hops onto a train and comes all the way to New York to meet with the Rebbe. And in the course of the conversation, he's interviewing the Rebbe and asking him all these questions about being a Jewish leader and the Jewish people at that time and what it is. And the Rebbe suddenly flips the conversation and begins to do a reverse role. And now the Rebbe starts interviewing him and saying, you're at a university. What's happening for the Jewish students at this university? What are you doing to ensure that there's Jewish life on this campus? How are you helping your fellow Jewish students? And Rabbi Sachs, Jonathan Sachs at the time, is shocked. He didn't expect to be the one being questioned. And he begins with, in the situation that I find myself in, trying to, make an excuse for whatever he's going through. And the Rebbe immediately stops him and says, nobody finds themselves in a situation. You put yourself in a situation. And if you put yourself in one situation, you can put yourself in another. And I think that message is everything we're talking about. Your perspective in life is your own. Nobody can make you happy. Nobody can help you see that this world is a garden. And nobody can share with you the beautiful fruit of this garden. You are the only one who can find it for yourself. You have a choice to either come down and find all the dirt and all the mud, or to find the gold, to find the beautiful fruit trees, to look at the fruits and say, I know there's a husk here, and I know that I need to dig deeper to find the beauty that's inside. But it's never up to others to do that for us. It's our responsibility and our mind shift that we each need to make for ourselves. And if we all do that in our own lives, when people pass by us, they will see the garden that walks with us. You mentioned Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. When Jewish people pass away, we believe that we go back to that garden. But it's not that we just go to a garden. We carry it with us. Every mitzvah that you do here in this world, in your life, surrounds you. And when you go to the next world, you don't get a reward. We don't have heaven and hell in that sense. You simply carry whatever you did in this world, whatever your perspective was in this world, you carry it with you to the next world. So if you're surrounded by beautiful fruits and by beautiful mitzvot, you carry that with you to the next world, and that is your beautiful garden. And you don't want to schlep all the dirt and all the mud back up with you. So find the fruits, find the beauty, and you yourself should shine so that when people look at you, they see, oh, this world really is a beautiful place. And just by being you and by having your perspective, you can impact so many others. So l'chaim to this very strong, powerful group of women who I am sure will truly light up this world. And being that Hanukkah is coming up, Hanukkah is all about lighting up the darkness. We specifically light the Hanukkah candles when it's nighttime, when it's dark outside, because the message of the menorah is to light up the darkness. It's very easy to light up the light. It's not easy to light up the darkness. That's the message of Hanukkah, and I know that we're going to do it. So l'chaim to